What's up? This is Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff, and on today's show, Maxx Crosby might get traded, so we get to create fake trades. Plus, the Mountain West agrees with me that Dra Gibbs Lawhorn is awesome. And how much money does Sacramento State actually have? So Maxx Crosby possibly getting traded means everyone's going to come up with their own trade proposals. Here we go. We're not going to talk about every trade proposal on this show because some of them are bad. But Bill Barnwell, who writes for ESPN, he wrote a story for offseason trades for a bunch of different teams. And I think Bill Barnwell is one of the better NFL writers that we have. So Bill Barnwell writes it. I'm usually going to read it and sort of see what the merits are, take some seriousness to it. So Bill Barnwell's trade idea for Maxx Crosby was to send him to the Chicago Bears. And the Raiders would get in return a first-round pick and wide receiver DJ Moore. Also, the Raiders were sending a fifth to the Bears in this scenario. I don't know why the Raiders are putting a sweetener here. But for the Raiders, obviously, if you're trading Maxx Crosby, it's because either Crosby asked for a trade or the front office decided, hey, let's jumpstart this rebuild and make our roster better for the future, get a pick or picks in return. This specific trade is hitting at, for the Raiders side, the wide receiver position, right? The Raiders' best wide receiver is Trey Tucker. Like, yes, Brock Bowers exists, and in theory, you don't have to have a true number one as long as you have Brock Bowers and he's as productive as he has been in his career. But you have to imagine if the Raiders are going to be good at some point in the future, they're going to have a better wide receiver than Trey Tucker. DJ Moore would be better than Trey Tucker. There is no denying that. However, DJ Moore's coming off a season where he had less than 700 receiving yards, despite playing in all 17 games. He does have 4 seasons with over 1,000 yards in his career, but he hasn't done the last 2. And he's turning 29 in April. He's going to start this year, is the first year of his 4-year extension that he signed with the Bears. So you're getting a fairly big contract. You're getting a player age-wise that's the same basically as Maxx Crosby when we're talking about how much longer will they be productive. And it's a player that's best years are probably behind him. I mean, it wouldn't be too surprising if he had more than like 670 yards like he had this past season, but he had 3 straight years of 1,000 receiving yards. He had a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, he had 1,300 receiving yards. Is he going to do that again? Probably not. I think the biggest problem, though, is DJ Moore doesn't fit the timeline, right? DJ Moore and his productivity, the highest level you can probably see is the next 2 years. But are we going to expect 32-year-old DJ Moore to put up big numbers? Probably not. And that's, to me, the whole reason you should be trading Maxx Crosby. He doesn't fit the timeline. The years in which you're going to be rebuilding are the final years of these players' peak. And players are different. Yes, they might be good for a couple of years after that, but you should be trying to line up players that match the peak. And the best way to do that is to get draft picks in. So I don't get the DJ Moore part of this. If I were the Raiders, I would not be interested in DJ Moore because of that. If the Raiders were going to try to win in 2026, then yeah, okay, DJ Moore makes some sense because he'd be your best wide receiver. And that would be, if that's the window, that's the window. But that's not the window. Not Clint Kubiak. John Spytek has basically told us there's a little bit of a rebuild that's going to happen here. And I would think it's going to be the next 2 years. Right? It doesn't mean they're going to be horrendous for the next 2 years. You kind of hope your rebuild is 6 wins and then 7 wins, something like that. But the next 2 years, you're not trying to win. It's about 2028. And that's when DJ Moore and Maxx Crosby are going to be maybe out of their primes or coming down at the back end of their primes, right? And those aren't the players that you want. I will say, this seems like a tremendous trade for the Bears. Just from their perspective, right? You give up a first-round pick, and by the way, it's a late first-round pick. We're in the final 10 picks of the first round. So that's another reason why for the Raiders, not great. And they'd be trading from a position of depth. If you look at the Bears right now, they have 3 good wide receivers on their team. DJ Moore, and then Rome Odunze and Luther Burden. They don't need all 3 of those wide receivers. That's not the greatest way to sort of spread the talent around your roster. And if you could turn one of them and a first-round pick into Maxx Crosby, that's awesome, right? So trading away DJ Moore would be great for them because Rome Odunze and Luther Burden are younger and better and on their rookie contracts. Now, because of that, if I'm the Raiders and I'm talking to the Bears and it's a first-round pick plus a wide receiver, if you change DJ Moore to Rome Odunze or you change DJ Moore to Luther Burden, now I'm interested because those two players are 23 and 22 years old and they're still on their rookie contracts. They fit the timeline. They could come here now, be the best wide receiver, and the next 2 years, you're not really expecting to win. And then all of a sudden, they're 24 or 25, depending on which one you get. And that's when you're trying to win. They line up with the Mendoza timeline. So if the trade was a first round pick and one of those two wide receivers, then we're talking about something. But the Bears are going to be less likely to give them up because they're younger and they're on the rookie contracts. The same reason that DJ Moore is less desirable to the Raiders. But I think that the bigger picture here on this trade proposal from Bill Barnwell, it's not about, oh my God, a first round pick and DJ Moore. DJ Moore's too old. Don't trade for DJ Moore. I think it underscores the value that Crosby's actually going to have in a trade. The Raiders are not getting a Micah Parsons package for Maxx Crosby. Jay Glazer came out and said that right before the Super Bowl. Adam Schefter's reported that the Raiders would want a Micah Parsons type package. They're not getting 2 first-round picks plus a valuable player. Like that's not the reality for trading for Maxx Crosby. That's not his value. And you're seeing this. Bill Barnwell's putting a trade together, and it's 1 first-round pick. By the way, bottom 10 of the first round, and a good player, but not a super valuable one because of age and because of contract. And so when we're looking at a Maxx Crosby trade, it's possible a first round pick is as good as it gets, because the other part of this would be interesting to see how it plays out. But if Crosby asks for a trade, the leverage the Raiders would have would decrease, and in theory, you might get less. Now, teams like the Cowboys exist, so they might be like, we like edge rushers now, and throw some picks at you. But in theory, if Crosby asks for one, then you might get less back than even this for a trade. And I think what it highlights the most is how badly the Raiders misplayed the last few seasons. The Raiders should have realized a couple of seasons ago that they were bad and that they needed to rebuild, right? Mainly after firing Josh McDaniels, but they didn't. The Raiders have been going for it for the last couple of seasons and haven't traded Crosby away. If they had traded Crosby away in either of the last 2 off seasons, they'd probably get a Micah Parsons type package. They'd probably get 2 first-round picks plus something else, right? Like that probably happens. But now Crosby is older. He's coming off back-to-back years with injuries. He's coming off knee surgery. There's less value there for Crosby. And now he might be the one that asks for a trade. I think the reality is if Maxx Crosby gets traded this offseason, there's a real chance we sort of look back and say, oh, that's it, when we talk about the return for Maxx Crosby. Another rumor, right? I didn't see this reported anywhere, but I saw PFF put it out and somebody else on Twitter put it out. Tyreek Hill getting released by the Dolphins, going to no longer be a Dolphin. And I have seen a couple of places where, the Raiders would be a landing spot for Tyreek Hill. And it all comes back to the wide receiver room for the Raiders is not very good. Again, I'm going to tell you about the window. Tyreek Hill turns 32 next month. He's coming off an ACL tear. I don't think there should be any interest in Tyreek Hill unless he is incredibly cheap. Because if the idea is to get Tyreek Hill because you need a number 1 wide receiver, then no. Right? Like, I don't want the 32-year-old coming off ACL surgery to be my number 1 wide receiver. I'm not paying a premium for that. But if Tyreek Hill is cheap, and let's say the Raiders are going to spend their draft picks outside of Mendoza at number 1 on offensive line or defense, and they kind of don't address wide receiver, and they just say, hey, we'd like to have a better wide receiver in here, and Tyreek Hill's cheap because he's 32 coming off of ACL injury, then yeah, that's fine. But if it's like, hey, let's make him a priority, let's make this a guy we want to go get, I don't think so. I don't think you actually do that. Now, there's one other thing on the Raiders that I want to touch on. And Ted Wynn of The Athletic wrote a good story about Clint Kubiak and sort of looking at things Clint Kubiak's done as a play caller and how that could help the Raiders, how that could translate to the Raiders. And a couple things in there that I thought were really interesting. And the first one is not really about scheme or anything. It's just Ted Ted put something into words that I think is kind of important. He wrote um, something that I think makes it like, oh, this is why you should be excited about Kubiak, given the Raiders' history of not hiring good coaches, right? Ted wrote, play calling ability certainly doesn't always translate to success as a head coach, but it's a tangible and valuable skill that Kubiak will bring. Tangible skill is the thing that I'm latched onto because Clint Kubiak got hired because he was the play caller of the Seahawks offense this season because of how good that offense was under Kubiak. Why did Pete Carroll get hired? Culture, experience, right? These intangible things that don't mean a whole lot. I mean, they're important, but like they're just buzzwords to me. And like, why did Antonio Pierce get hired? His attitude, his charisma. Again, they're not tangible things. It's just his personality, right? So Kubiak has a very specific skill that you can go out and say, this is what we want you to do here. Call those plays so our offense looks like that, right? Those other things aren't unimportant because like Josh McDaniels is a great example. He's clearly a good play caller in the NFL. There's no doubting Josh McDaniels is a good offensive mind, but he lacks something in leadership and intangibles, right? Culture, whatever it is. So clearly those things are important. And maybe Clint Kubiak fails because of that. Maybe Kubiak comes here and it's like, oh, he's a good play caller, but he can't get guys to play for him or nobody. Like maybe we have the same stories of McDaniels. Hopefully not. But like it's possible that happens. But I like the idea of hiring something that's tangibly there, the play calling, and not just the, oh, well, Pete Carroll's old and he's done this a long time, so he's going to fix the culture. I don't like that very much. The other interesting thing that Ted wrote about was the offensive line and the run scheme. So Clint Kubiak comes from a coaching tree of running outside zone. It's the specific blocking scheme for how the Raiders are going to run the ball, most likely under Kubiak, because that's what he's done in the past. And the thing that Ted Wynn highlighted was that in the past few seasons, the Raiders have tried to run outside zone, but the coaches they've had in place were not coaches that were experienced with it. And like you look at this past season, Chip Kelly, apparently he doesn't coach outside zone. I don't know if he's ever done it. And The Athletic had the report that Pete Carroll had sort of forced that they should run outside zone, even though that wasn't Chip Kelly's preferred style of offense, right? That story came out after Chip Kelly got fired. And so they're running outside zone, but it's not what the offensive coordinator wants. It's this mishmash of non-experts in it trying to coach players because the head coach wants it. Well, in theory, Clint Kubiak's been doing it his whole career. He's going to be good at it. And Ted wrote, last season is no indication of whether the Raiders have the right personnel for this system. And that's fascinating if you look at this from a front office standpoint, because how are they going to evaluate the offensive line if they view last season as poorly coached? Is it just a lost year? I mean, it was. They got the number one pick, but it was, right? And as a front office, how many offensive linemen do you need to replace? Based on production of the last 2 years, it's 4. I mean, Colton Miller's a good offensive lineman. Granted, he got hurt and only played 4 games last season, and he turns 31, so we'll see. But at the very least, like based on production, it's 4. There's one offensive lineman on this team that you would say, yep, we feel good about that offensive lineman. The rest of them is either like, please no, or like Jackson Powers Johnson, maybe can be good, right? Like you're sort of projecting, or some rookies they had this past season. But if you said, hey, the Raiders need a Super Bowl to win or need an offensive line to win the Super Bowl, you would be like, all right, we need 4 new guys. You don't have to do that in one offseason because this should be a multi-year rebuild. But based on their projection, you need to replace basically all of them. But if the offensive line was in part bad because the coaching was bad, maybe better coaches that coach the outside zone will make these players look better. I don't know how the front office views it, but that's an interesting way of maybe the front office doesn't view the offensive line as bad as their production has been. I would still lean towards replacing as many as possible, but if they don't, maybe this is why. And the other thing on the offensive line Ted pointed out that I thought was fascinating is apparently in Clint Kubiak's offense, the center is the one who kind of at the line of scrimmage will call the blocking schemes, right? And the quarterback apparently has the power to override that and everything, but it's the center who's going to be calling out those blocking schemes most of the time at the line of scrimmage. And so Ted basically was highlighting how important it was that the Raiders get a good center here for Fernando Mendoza. So based on what Ted wrote, like if you were gonna approach one position on the offensive line, one to fix, it's that one, right? It's the offense, it's the center position because that's going to be the most helpful for Fernando Mendoza. And if you need a couple of years to fix your guards, or by the way, in a couple of years fix Colton Miller, that position anyways, that would be something you do. And by the way, as I'm saying this, I kind of realize Colton Miller doesn't fit the timeline either. He was injured and he's not as a high priority as Maxx Crosby. But if you could trade Colton Miller for some picks, they should absolutely do that as well. So yeah, there's your spiel on windows. I'm probably going to talk about it a lot because I love talking about teams and championship windows. I think it's one of the more fascinating ways that front offices should look at teams is, hey, what's our championship window? The Raiders are not in one, and they won't be in one for a couple of years unless Fernando Mendoza's better than Tom Brady. But like the reality is their championship window is not this next 2 years. It should come open 3 years from now if things go right. That's the reality of it, and that's how I think they should be viewing every move they make in the offseason.
Battle Blast, been serving Las Vegas since June 2012 with the very best in family entertainment. We are proud to provide the best facility, equipment, and service possible. Strap on laser tag vests, step into the 5,600 square foot 2-story arena designed to look like a worn, torn city street. An exciting atmosphere filled with exhilarating music, blacklight effects, and fog. Battle Blast also features a viewing deck for those not playing can watch players vest up and catch a view of the action going on in the arena. In between games, check out our arcade and prize center and enjoy tasty treats from our snack bar. Birthday parties, sports teams, group outings, and corporate events. Battle Blast does it all. We want to make your Battle Blast experience so good you'll want to return again and again. Battle Blast is the ultimate destination for family fun and friendly competition.
Technically Correct is brought to you by Battle Blast Las Vegas, the best laser tag in Vegas. Battle Blast is the perfect spot for your next event, whether it's your kid's birthday party, a corporate event, your kid finishes a Little League season and you need an end-of-season party. Battle Blast is the place to go. You can also do it for your birthday. Get your friends, get your family, your coworkers together, and head out to Battle Blast Las Vegas. Plus, they have more than just laser tag. They've got an arcade. They've got prizes. It's Battle Blast Las Vegas, located at 8125 West Sahara Avenue. Your next stop for fun in Las Vegas. Also, if you want to sponsor the show, email me, technicallycorrectvegas@gmail.com. Would love to do a sponsorship with all of you. Dra Gibbs Lawhorn was named Mountain West Player of the Week for the second time this season. He obviously has had incredible games, had an unbelievable game against Boise State and UNLV's comeback win. I am curious to see here. UNLV is not going to challenge for the Mountain West regular season championship. They're probably not going to challenge for a top 4 spot. We'll see. They're not too far away, but they're probably not. They're probably going to lose some games here. So his chances at winning Mountain West Player of the Year, not going to really be real. But can he make first team All Mountain West? He might lead the conference in scoring. He is leading the conference in scoring right now in conference games. Can he actually be on the first team? I'd be curious to see, because the other part of that is, does he keep this up? I mean, he scored 20 plus in 5 straight games. That's impressive. Like, is he able to continue this type of run? I don't know. Possibly, but he's been really, really good, and doing it this well for this long. Probably not. There'll be a downturn, but how big is that downturn? Also, in the Olympics, U.S. women's hockey team will play for gold after beating Sweden 5-0 in the semifinal. They have the longest shutout streak in women's hockey history at the Olympics. They play Canada for the gold medal on Thursday. I believe it's a 10 a.m. start on Thursday. They already crushed Canada in the group stage. Canada barely got past Switzerland. This seems like it's probably going to be a blowout as well. We appear to be much, much better than Canada at women's hockey, which is great. Hopefully we beat them in both men's and women's hockey. I've also got an Olympic complaint for you here really quick. Probably won't be really quick. I think what annoys me about some of the Olympic Games is that they could be better. And specifically, the events where it's racing, we're seeing who's the fastest, but they don't race each other. And like what I mean by that is like you have some of the skating where there is speed skating where they race. It's four skaters going around at the same time and they crash into each other and it's great. Right? It's highly entertaining. There's the have you seen relay speed skating? It's insane. They're on the inside and they come in and they push them. It's ridiculous. But there's also skating where they go in pairs and they do 30 people in 15 pairs and then they just take the best time and that guy or that girl wins the gold medal. And I hate that. Like that's not you're racing, put them all on the ice at the same time. Whittle them down to 4 or 8, however many fit, and then put them out there at the same time. What's the point of racing if we're not going to race them literally head to head against each other? I don't get it. I don't understand why we have racing head to head and then, oh yeah, these guys are going to skate on their own and see who's the fastest. That's stupid. And I know this one, people can be like, oh, it'd be way too dangerous and it'd be hard to build a track. Can you imagine how much better bobsledding would be if they lined up 4 bobsleds and then everybody ran and pushed at the same time and then they all went down the track at the same time? I know they'd crash. It's dangerous. But that might be the best sport of the Winter Olympics. If we had 4 bobsleds racing at the same time on these dangerous ice paths, that'd be incredible to watch. But instead, they all go one at a time, and then we see who has the fastest time. And like I know skeleton, that's the one where they're face down and their face is like this far off the ice. That one looks crazy dangerous. But also, if you had 4 people doing it at once, incredibly fun to watch. Instead, they go one at a time, and then we see their times, and NBC's got to put up like they were 0.89 seconds off the leader. And it's like, it'd be great if I saw him cross the finish line exactly 0.89 seconds behind the leader. I don't get it. We have race events where they don't actually race head to head. It just seems stupid. It just seems like we're missing out on what could be incredible sports. Like the other one, what is it? The one that Lindsey Vonn broke her leg in, the slalom, obviously incredibly dangerous. Put four women up there at the same time and let them go. Like, let's see them all go at the same time. That would be great. But instead, it's, everybody does it individually. I don't like it. I don't like that we're racing, but it's like NASCAR qualifying. Nobody cares about NASCAR qualifying. You care about the race itself. It just seems dumb. All right. Also, we've got a fun story for the Raiders. The Raiders pulled off what I think is a very, very funny move. So there's a guy named Matt Robinson, and he is going to be the Raiders' new secondary coach. Well, Matt Robinson was in Baltimore as their outside linebacker coach last season. He accepted a job with the Giants as an assistant defensive line coach on February 3rd. And then on February 16th, he's now the Raiders' secondary coach. So not even 2 full weeks being with the Giants, he moves to the Raiders. Now, it's a better title, right? Assistant position coach to just, you are the position coach. So it's a better title. I'm assuming it's a raise as well. It's obvious why he would take that, but it just seems very funny that he would leave a team he just took a job for 2 weeks ago. It also seems very funny that in the span of a couple of months, he's gone from coaching linebackers to defensive line to secondary. So he's got all the disciplines covered. He can handle it all. But I do like when teams sort of steal coaches, and especially if it's like, hey, we stole this guy you just hired 2 weeks ago. Yeah, we want him now. Technically Correct is brought to you by Battle Blast Las Vegas, the best laser tag in Vegas. Make sure you host your next birthday party at Battle Blast. Book the party package and you'll get a private party room, a party host, pizza, soda, arcade tokens, and laser tag. You can also add on a game for adults after the kids are done. It's Battle Blast Las Vegas, located at 8125 West Sahara Avenue, your next stop for fun in Vegas. So we've seen more conference realignment this month, but it's been taking teams from the FCS, not completely screwing over teams in FBS conferences. And we don't care about those FCS conferences. Go do whatever they want. But North Dakota State is joining the Mountain West, and now Sacramento State is joining the MAC. And one of the interesting parts of this is the entry fees, right? North Dakota State's paying $12.5 million to the Mountain West to join the conference. Sacramento State going to the MAC is $18 million. So they got charged significantly more to join the MAC, but that is not it. They are paying so much money to make this move. Ross Dellinger tweeted out a lot more details from their move. It's $18 million to the MAC, and so that is $6 million this year, and then the rest of that sort of installments over the next 5. On top of that, there's a $5 million payment that goes to the NCAA. So we're up to $23 million already. On top of that, Sacramento State agreed to pay the air travel for all of the teams in the MAC that have to fly and play road games against Sacramento State. So it's going to be, 4 home football games a year where they're going to have to pay Miami of Ohio or Bowling Green to fly across the country and play. But it's for a year, and this deal is for 5 years, right? And they get none of the television revenue from the MAC. Now, the MAC's not going to have a great TV deal. We're not talking about the $70 million the Big Ten or SEC are paying out, but it is money that those schools use, and they're not going to get that. KCRA reported that Sacramento State's athletic department had a budget last year of $11 million. So again, to keep you up there, $5 million to the NCAA, $18 million to the MAC, and then they're paying for the flights of all of the schools that have to come and play them. Athletic department budget is $11 million. So that's going up. And this all seems highly unlikely for Sacramento State to actually make this work, right? Do they actually have enough money to justify this? Or do they have a big donor? Are they like Texas Tech where it's like, yeah, we got this one guy who's got so much money, he doesn't care. He just said pay whatever it takes to get into the MAC of all conferences, right? Like, if that's the case, then okay, they'll be fine. It just doesn't seem like this is, oh yeah, that's clearly going to work. It seems like, no, this is clearly not going to work. But then we have this detail. The president of Sacramento State is a guy named Luke Wood. And I assume this is his real Twitter account because multiple people that I trust as real journalists tweeted this out, retweeted this. But at least an account from Luke Wood said that moving to the MAC, Sacramento State moving to the MAC, will bring an estimated economic impact of $975 million. So the president of Sacramento State thinks that Sacramento State will generate nearly $1 billion in economic impact by playing in the MAC. Does he think Bowling Green just is pulling in billions of dollars over the years? Like, how does anyone think playing in the MAC is going to be worth that much money? No one can possibly think that. But he tweeted it out. And this is why every single economic study done by a sports team or league should be looked at with the most critical eye, the most cynicism you can possibly have, because they make up numbers for economic impact, and they need these fake numbers to justify it, right? Like they're about to spend what? $30 million over the next 5 years to play in the MAC. They need to justify that. So how do you justify it? You either do it yourself or you pay some firm to say, hey, put together some economic impact numbers that make this look good. And then they give you back something that says $975 million because you're going to play football in the MAC. Do you remember, if you're here in Vegas, when the Raiders were trying to get their stadium and get the $750 million in public funding, right? We had all these meetings ahead of that. The Raiders were paying for economic studies to do the same thing. Now, to be fair, they were not as absurd as $1 billion to play in the MAC, but they were still putting together or paying somebody to put together these economic studies to basically say, hey, look how great of a deal this is. And the detail that always should be found funny and should dismiss anything they've ever said is that the Raiders were going to generate for the city an economic impact of $100 million every single year just from TV announcers saying Las Vegas Raiders. That alone was going to generate $100 million in economic impact. We all know that's bullshit. right? But not our state legislatures because they all went with it. Or maybe they did know it was bullshit, but they got enough to make it worthwhile from the Raiders to vote yes on it, right? It's not they're not real. And this is one of the greatest extreme examples you can have that, hey, if a sports team or league tries to say these are the economic impact, these are the millions or billions of dollars that your city or your county or your state are going to pull in if you give us all of this public money or whatever the hell Sacramento State's trying to do, you know it's a lie. You know it's not true. This has been Technically Correct with Tyler Bischoff. Thank you so much for tuning in.